Welcome to my channel. This is the third installment of the books I've read so far this year. Actually, that's a bit of a lie. I didn't complete this one. Since I have so much space available in my notebook because I haven't been reading as much this year, I decided to include journal entries for books I completely abandoned. It's also a good way for me to use up some of my journaling supplies. Without Reservations is a travel memoir by American journalist and Pulitzer Prize winner Alice Steinbach. It recounts the year that she took off to live in Europe, and apparently during that time, she lived in 5 different cities, but I didn't make it past Paris. It wasn't poorly written or anything, but I was just so very bored with her story. I mean, I guess it was kind of interesting that she would talk to strangers and then make plans with them and follow through with those plans. The 90s were a different time because all I can think of is that's how you get kidnapped. That's how you get your organs harvested. I'm good. It just wasn't for me. I'm not the target audience for it. Alright, I've had this book for a few years now and I've been very excited to read it. It's called The Isle of the Lost by Melissa de la Cruz, which is the first book in the Descendants series.
That's not how that works, you stupid. It's okay, we'll put a sticker over it.
As you could probably guess, it takes place on an island to which all the Disney villains have been banished. Somehow, they all manage to find someone to mate with because the story follows the next generation of villains who are all eager to prove themselves to their parents. And no one wants to prove she's more evil than Maleficent's daughter, Mal. And like her mother, she's also good at holding a grudge for not being invited to a birthday party. It makes sense that the kids are little brats, but I didn't like them at all and I wasn't rooting for them. As a kid, I maybe would have enjoyed it a lot more. Reading it now, I just wasn't into all the teenage angst. I haven't watched the show Descendants on the Disney Channel, and I have no desire to. I know it's definitely not targeted towards someone of my advanced age, but I have seen a few clips, and I was trying really hard not to picture those actors as the characters. I kept picturing the established characters like Jafar and the Evil Queen as animations. It was kind of a Roger Rabbit deal, but not as good. I really hate how this journal spread turned out. I was trying to do a good versus evil type of thing. I thought it would be a lot of fun because it's Disney and I obviously have some Disney stationery, but I don't know what I was doing here. Nothing was turning out the way I wanted it to. Next is The Sword of the Rightful King by Jane Yolen. I love a good Arthurian retelling, and this one did not disappoint. Okay, that's not entirely true. I do wish there was a sequel, but in an interview included at the end, the author said she wanted to leave the ending as is instead of including all the later heartbreak. If you're familiar with the Arthurian legends, you'll know what she means. I found this copy years ago in a little free library, and I traded a few books for it. I'm glad I did because I probably would have never known about it otherwise. The novel starts with Arthur already crowned king, but his hold is tenuous. Margaux, a powerful sorceress and the Queen of Orkney, vies to claim what she believes is her birthright by putting one of her sons on the throne. And Merlin, along with his young ward, concoct a scheme to solidify Arthur's power by placing a sword in a stone that only the true king can free. But the twist to this retelling is that someone else releases the sword. Doesn't that description, which is similar to the one given at the back of the book, make it seem like the inciting incident is when the sword is released, and that Arthur has to spend the rest of the novel dealing with the person's threat to his rule? But that's not how it happens. So you see how easy it is to be misled by a poorly written blurb or a amateur YouTuber? Even still, I really enjoyed the book. I thought it was well written, and though I had guessed the big reveal and thought the ending was slightly rushed and contrived, I gave it 4 stars. It came out in 2003. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it reminds me of a few other YA books published around that time. There's something kind of nostalgic about it. The next book probably shouldn't even be included in my reading count since it's an art book, but let me have it, okay? I haven't read that much this year. I checked out Enchanted, a history of fantasy illustration from the library. I found it at random while waiting for some lady to get out of the way so I could look at books on calligraphy. As you can imagine by the title, the text focuses on fantasy and art from ancient times through to the present. I was most interested in the sections on Victorian fairy tale illustrators like Howard Pyle and Arthur Rackham. I have a lot of stickers with Arthur Rackham's illustrations, but I'm hoarding them so I didn't use them in this journal spread. As I was reading this, I wrote down a list of artists I'm interested in reading more about. Also a few museums I'd like to visit. Especially considering the size of a lot of these paintings, you can't really get a sense of the artwork until you've seen it in person. One of them I really want to see is Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights, which is currently on display at a museum in Madrid. It's so gruesome, I love it. My biggest takeaway from this is that my favorite brand of Japanese mayo, Kewpie, is named after the comic strip characters by Rose O'Neil. I had no idea. Would I recommend this? Well, I wouldn't not recommend it, but I wouldn't buy it. It's not one that I feel like I need in my collection. Also, there are far too many naked people in this for my liking. Lastly, I read George's Marvelous Medicine by Roald Dahl. This one's about a boy named George who has to watch his cantankerous grandma while his parents are out, and she's a horrible, horrible woman. I can only aspire to be such a terrible grandmother if I were to one day produce offspring. One of his responsibilities is to give her medicine to her, but he gets the idea to switch it out with his own concoction made from every item he can pour, squeeze, or scrape into his large pot. He hopes the medicine will either cure her of her horribleness or blow off the top of her head, and the results are entirely unexpected. As with most of Dahl's stories, I found this entertaining and slightly horrifying. I don't know how it happened, but at some point I have matured into an adult because all I could think of was how much everything cost that he was mixing together. Do you know how much face cream costs in this economy? You know, I'm not a huge fan of this illustration style, but because it's so messy, I can kind of copy it. Mine still doesn't look very good, but I'm just going to say it. It takes a lot of skill to draw this poorly, believe you me. Well, that's all I have for this video. Please let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought of them. I hope you'll consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye! Kewpie, Kewpies. My favorite brand of mayo, which is my favorite food group. Turn it into spicy mayo. Oh, I have a backup mayo. I always have a backup mayo. Very peculiar.